Hello there and welcome back to Laurence Plays Factorio Planetary Pioneers, the mod set where we've got over 20 planets, over 30 science packs, over 100 mods and 5 players. So we've managed to get quite a lot done, and today we're going to take a look at the defences. Marc has been heading the defences. Okay, he's been heading everything on this planet, but specifically the defences. He's done a lot of the building work on it because it's something he can dip in and out of while he's telling everyone else what to do. And so now it's finally got to the point where we're able to have a look at it because he's got a complete defensive wall going around basically the entire factory. So you can see we've made good use of this lake down here, bringing the wall all the way across the bottom here and then up over here. Unfortunately, we do have an external corner down here, which isn't ideal. But we're dealing well enough with the biters, I think, and early enough with them that I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem, at least until we start using artillery a lot. Then up here we've got a couple of lakes that are doing quite well, and one up here which is giving us another top corner. So that one is done really, really well. And then some more lakes across the top here. I think at one point we did have a wall running up along here, but that's now been removed because it was a rather unnecessarily long wall, and we've managed to expand a little bit further and take over these two bottlenecks over here. Especially this one's a really good one up here. Although looking at it, that wall isn't quite complete yet. You can see that the belt along here hasn't actually been built, but it's virtually there. And all of these walls, they're nice and heavily defended. We've got a row of gun turrets along here with inserters to load them up with ammunition. We've got pumps passing the oil. This is light oil, I think. Yes, light oil down here. So it's going to all the flamethrowers, and the flamethrowers are close enough to have good overlap between them. So any biters that come in are going to be nice and toasty. Even, well, I suppose roughly as they get into range of the gun turrets, because the gun turrets are slightly outranged by the flame turrets. But yeah, so we've got the row of turrets. Then we've got the flame turrets to sort of soften the biters up before they get too close. We've also got radars all the way around to make sure we get full radar coverage. You can see it's going all the way out like this. And there are, as I was saying, pumps every so often along the pipeline here, like this one, because, well, eventually the pipe would get a bit too long. In fact, that's happened a little bit down here. We can see we've got, even with the new, very, very kind long pipes that you can get with Factorio 2, eventually you do get to the limit of how far they can go, and these ones have got to that point. So at some point we're going to need a couple of extra pumps in here, maybe one here and one here, I don't know, every so often, just to keep the oil flowing. But essentially we've got a very, very good defensive system up and running over here. Now you might notice that all of the turrets have got yellow ammunition in, but the belt has red ammo. And that's because, well, we started off producing yellow ammo, as you do, but now we've got to the point where we have the large biters around, and so the yellow ammunition isn't really enough to take them down. If we take a look in the Factoriopedia, you can see that they have a resistance to physical damage of 8 and 10%. And if we look at our yellow ammunition, you can see that does 9 damage. So that means we're going to be doing about 1 damage per bullet if they're using yellow ammunition against them. And so that's not really going to be enough. They've got 375 health base, and so yeah, we're going to need slightly better ammunition than that. The red ammunition, on the other hand, does about 14.5 damage, and so that even when you knock off 8 and then another 10%, you're still looking at about 5 or 6 damage from each shot fired. And so that's going to be able to cut them down a lot more effectively, especially if we've also softened them up a little bit with the fire, which they have absolutely no resistances to whatsoever. And so to keep this expansion happy, we're building up walls over here for the grey science, and we're feeding them off into a box somewhere as well, I believe. Yes, here we go. There's a box down here to keep a supply of them available, and some gates as well. Although I don't know if we've actually used any of those yet. We don't really need to go outside our walls at this point. Also making a nice ready supply of turrets going into a box again, and then red ammunition's being made over here, again for the grey science, so it's going past that, being grabbed as much as is required, and then passed off out to go along this belt and disappear off into the distance. We don't seem to have got the ratio quite right along here. I think I built the first part of this and I got the numbers wrong. This machine is producing yellow science at a rate of 0.75 per second, and these are using yellow ammunition up at a rate of 0.25 per second. So that means this can produce enough ammunition to keep 3 of these guys happy. Unfortunately, we've got a little bit more than that, and that's because I think what happened here is I came in and I looked at this recipe here, and I think I missed that it was taking in 2 firearm magazines for each time this runs, and so I got the numbers wrong along here, and I put in 6 machines. Since then, Marc has come along and put in another 6 machines and made the problem twice as bad. So we are producing a quarter of the amount of yellow ammunition that we need in order to keep all of these red machines happy. This is something we can probably upgrade in the next stream, I suspect. The big question with that, of course, is are we producing the wooden ammunition fast enough? And it looks like this is exactly the right speed, because this is producing 0.75 per second, and this is using 0.75 per second. So we're actually going to have to quadruple the wooden ammunition and the yellow ammunition in order to get the amount of red ammunition that we're kind of spec'd for up here. That said, if we look along the belts, we do seem to be, well, there's a very, very, very long empty belt going up here and going off in many, many different directions. But if we follow it for approximately forever, then we will find eventually, and I really mean eventually, that it is starting to gradually fill up, I think. Well, here we go. Yeah, so it is starting to gradually fill up. It's just taking a very, very long time, and I suspect that our current rate of expansion will be expanding faster than the ammunition belt fills up. So that's a little unfortunate. That said, if we look up here, we have solid yellow ammunition coming up here, so you can tell that we've not had any attacks coming in because we've not been using any of it. And if we go back to the junction here, you can see that we had enough yellow ammunition when this was placed to fill this up, and now that we're waiting for the red ammunition to come through, it just can't keep up. Which is interesting, because I think we are actually producing the red ammunition at the same speed we were producing yellow ammo at earlier. Clearly we had another bit of wall across here. In fact, I remember this. This is when we were coming up, yes, to get these ore patches, and Tristan put in a little bit of defences across there and across here as well. But since then, we've expanded a bit further out and found some better bottlenecks to make safe and protect ourselves with. Similarly over here, how are we getting on? Well, once again, we've got yellow ammo filling up this belt, and the red is still trickling out this way. These are some incredibly long belts we've got taking the ammunition away, and I know this is sort of inevitable at this sort of stage of the game because we don't really have trains up and running yet. So we produce the ammunition on the bus, and then we need to get it to here and here and here and here and here and so on. And so you are basically going to end up with really, really long belts to everywhere. Now, possibly we could have run a belt down to here and then looped it around this way, and it would have been slightly shorter. I probably wouldn't have been that much shorter because we still need to get it across this big gap over here. So it's just a bit of an inevitability that you end up with massive long belts, and possibly more problematic, you end up with loads and loads of this yellow ammo that honestly isn't really that useful. As we were discussing earlier when we looked at that big biter, this stuff will hardly scratch them. So maybe what we need to do is send someone round to gather up all of this yellow ammunition off the belts and then drop it into these machines along here so it can be upgraded into red ammo, and that will, at least for a little while, will take the pressure off this machine here that's trying to make the red ammo but not doing it remotely quickly enough. I think that might be a good idea. I will try and remember to suggest it next time we start playing. This is a pretty good defensive wall now. I mean, it's going to deal with any biter attacks that come in, and if we have any particular areas that are more difficult than we're expecting, should we say, then we can always reinforce them a bit by putting in quite a few more turrets. There's room for another extra 3 between each one of these, so we can quadruple the amount of firepower that will come out at any point along the walls around here. So there's room for plenty more output, damage output along here. And then at some point in the future we could potentially put lasers in as well, and maybe even get better turrets from other places. We'll see what comes from the various different planets we're going to go to. But there's a lot of capability here for expansion of the damage output, so I think we should be alright. However, one of the things that Marc has noted is that we are no longer quite defending our pollution cloud. And defending your pollution cloud is a Factorio concept where you reckon that it's better to build a wall and defences that go out further than your pollution cloud, because that means if your pollution doesn't get to the biters, they can't use it to make more biters, they won't expand as much, and they won't attack your factory. So for example down here you can see that the pollution is growing out into this area and then it's getting absorbed by this spawner here. And that means this spawner can pick up the pollution and it can turn it into biters. Eventually this nest will have a critical mass of the little sods, and then they'll come pouring up here and they'll attack our walls because they'll be trying to get to where the pollution came from. But they'll run into the wall and all the turrets here, and they will, in theory at least, be cut down by them, especially when these turrets start to use up all the yellow ammunition and then switch over to the red, which, as we discussed, does a lot more damage. But that is an expensive process because firstly, because there's a slight risk of damage along here, and we haven't got Roboport coverage out this far yet because, well, Roboports are still something we're struggling with a little bit because they're expensive to make. And also because defending against biters uses up quite a lot of iron and a certain amount of copper when you're using red ammunition, because you're just burning through ammunition to take them down. And so, ideally, if you can prevent the biters from attacking your base, then you'll do a lot better. You'll spend a lot less ammunition and you'll have a lot less risk to your base than if you just build up a really tough wall and go, it's fine, we'll tank every single attack that comes in. So yeah, we've got a little bit of leaching out over here. This hasn't reached the biters yet, but it's I think it's getting absorbed by the trees up here, so that's not too bad. But it is outside the wall, so maybe we need to consider moving that one out a bit. And then down here is definitely a problem because, as I said, it's impinging on this nest here, and that is going to cause us some issues in the not too distant future. Where we want to expand to, well, that's a tricky question. We've got a really good lake over here that's giving us a lot of defences, and this one up here and this one up here. So on 2 and a bit sides of the factory, so all the way from basically this corner to this corner, we've got really good watery defences going all the way around. That will mean we only have to have relatively short defensive areas like this. And short defensive areas are easier to make. They're easier to defend. You don't. It just feels nicer. You can channel all of the biters into a smaller area. Defend that area really, really well, and then it's just a bit less. It's less infrastructure required to build it up, and it's just easier, especially when you start supplying by trains. And you can see my outpost tutorial video here to tell you a bit more about that. But down here, there's not so much water available, and we could put a blockade across here. That's quite a good one. That's a really short bottleneck. But then from there, well, maybe we'd need to explore out a bit further and see what's available. But if at the moment all I can really see is running a wall from here all the way to here, and that's really quite long. We don't really want to go that far if we can avoid it. And then from here, we could probably just about get from this one to this one without putting an external corner in. And then from here, do we then build up to here, or do we then try and build out this far? It's going to be tricky because ideally, we don't want to have too much wall out there if we can avoid it, because, as I say, it's just a faff to build it all at this stage of the game. And so, maybe actually, despite what I was saying, until we get to the sort of the next stage of technology, we'd be better off just tanking any attacks that come in along here. There haven't been any in the time we've been watching, but it is only a matter of time. There might not be a huge amount of pollution drifting out this way, but there is enough that we're getting some onto these nests, and they are going to get angry and come in and want to say hello fairly soon. One thing that we have observed is that the combination of mods we have installed at the moment make combat open to some slightly cheap tactics, shall we say. So traditionally in Factorio combat, when you want to go out to deal with a biter nest, you tend to put down a row of turrets like this to give you a place to run away to in sheer terror when the biters get a bit too much. Then and then you wander forward, you put down another row of them that's within range of the previous lot you had put down, and so on and so on. You can keep sort of moving forwards like this, and we call it turret creep, because you gradually creep your turrets towards the air biters, and that means you've got a decent amount of firepower to keep you safe. And that's all very well, it works quite nicely. But in vanilla Factorio, when you put down a turret, it doesn't have any ammunition in it, so you then have to pause briefly to put some ammunition into it, which slows you down a little bit, makes this a little bit harder. Also, you can only reach about this far, so you have to get quite close to the biters. With long reach, you can do the whole thing from back here, so I can stand way over here in the safety of way behind the turrets and place down a row of them like that. And because we've also got the Fill For Me mod installed, it automatically drops ammunition into them. So these are all now loaded with 10 magazines each, which means they are ready to fire as soon as you put them down. Even with bots, if I copy these and put them down there, then my bots will fly out and they'll place them. They don't have ammunition in, so you can do it. You can also do a trick, which I touched on in one of my other videos, where you place down a ghost turret. You open that ghost turret, and then you put some ghost ammunition in the ghost turret. And if you do that, and then copy and paste the turret, your bots will place it, and then they'll put ammunition into it. So that's better, and that's the best you can do in vanilla. It's certainly a lot better. You get a turret put down, it has a load of ammunition put in it, and that means you can spam these things out. You put in a load of them like this, and then the bots will do all of that. However, the turrets are still temporarily very vulnerable because they don't have any ammunition in. With the combination of long reach and Fill For Me, however, you can just whack them down almost any way you like, very, very quickly and easily, and they're fully loaded, and they're already dangerous. And so when I've had long reach installed, and possibly when I've had Fill For Me, certainly when I've had even distribution, which is almost as good but not quite, I've been putting turrets down like this, and then I've been doing the sort of standard turret creep. Marc has taken this one step further with maximum efficiency, and his tactic is just to do this and just fill the enemy nest up with turrets like that. Every turret drops down with a load of ammunition in it, and as you can see, everything is now dead. All I did was waggle my mouse over the over the area where the biters were. Yes, some of my turrets have taken up a little bit of damage, but not very much. If I brought more than 50 turrets, then that would have been even more of a slaughter. And also, if I hadn't scattered them quite so far away, I could have done it a lot better than I did. But my point is that this is a little bit OP, basically. You can take the biters out a bit more quickly and easily than is strictly reasonable. I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, combat has never been my favourite part of Factorio, and being able to just deal with the biters very, very quickly and easily, I can definitely see the appeal and the of that, and I don't entirely disagree, but it does feel a bit cheap and a bit too easy. Let me know in the comments what you think. The cleanup does take a while, however. But in case that massive slaughter wasn't enough for you, let's demonstrate it again. You see, I can just fill the biter's nest area up, and once again I flicked turrets out far too far over to the side here, just trying to put loads of them down quickly. But it's just an absolute instant slaughter. It's ridiculous. But it is very, very effective, and so it's very hard to criticise it. And this is entirely down to the set of mods we've installed that just make things a bit too easy. And so, I think that covers everything I wanted to talk to you about today. Thank you very much for watching. As you can see, we've got nice defensive coverage all the way around the outside of the base at the moment, and I think things are going pretty well on that front. I hope we'll see you back again for the next video, and back on Monday when we'll be streaming some more Factorio Planetary Pioneers with all 5 of us, and on Wednesday when I should be playing some Foundry. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.